setting up also, recording is starting. I'm setting up now our Facebook feed so we can go live. So give us a moment, please. Perfect. The webinar is being live streamed now, as I can see, it's on our Facebook page. So hello to everyone on Facebook land that is watching us on our live feed now. And hello to everyone that is here with us on Zoom. Thank you for joining us. We're so excited to be hosting Karen Ross with her book, Big Karma and Little Cosmo. Well, there's two books, I guess, that help each other and the Welcome to Cat Zenni. So Karen is the author, and the illustration was done by Karen Light, who are our two protagonists of today's global read. Karen, the illustrator, is also going to be the facilitator for this conversation. So we are super excited to be able to host them both on this global read. And so let me stop sharing my screen. Hi, both Karen and Karen. How are you guys doing?
Good. Yes, absolutely fabulous. We're so excited to be here today, and such an honor to be invited to come and share our Big Karma and Little Cosmo and New Cat Zenni books with everyone here in Charter for Compassion.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us once again. So I'm gonna let you take over the conversation. There is for everyone that is watching, there's a special surprise at the end, and then if you can just leave me about 3 to 5 minutes before the end of the hour, so we can go through announcements. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's so great to be with you today. And it's really great to be here with my friend and creative collaborator, Karen Ross. So I met Karen a number of years ago. I was out in the networking world and somebody said, "You have to meet my friend Karen." And I was like, "Well, sure." And we met up at a coffee shop, and within an hour, we're hugging and saying, "I love you," because that's the kind of person that Karen is. And it's been a joy to be her friend and her collaborator ever since. I have to say, one of the biggest impacts that you've made on me, Karen, is this attitude of like, why not you? Why not you? Whenever I am putting some kind of limit on myself, I now have you as a voice in my head saying, why not you? Just go do it. Just go do the thing. You can. And I so appreciate that encouragement, that inspiration, and you leading by example in so many ways with this attitude. So I'm pleased to be here with you.
Oh my goodness. And I'm just as excited to be here with you, and thank you for your kind words. And I feel exactly the same way about you. And as we were saying a little bit earlier, when Lynn asked me, could I suggest someone who would be a facilitator for this session? I didn't even have to think about it. The only facilitator for this session, and the perfect facilitator, of course, would be you. And we've collaborated and cooperated and co-created, I'm going to say, so many things from that very first meeting. And I thought one of the things that maybe before we even read Big Karma and Little Cosmo help each other and talk about, why we have a sequel, Big Karma and Little Cosmo, Welcome New Cat Zenni, I thought we might first start talking about, well, how do an author and an illustrator work together, right? How does a book, a family book, come into existence? And so I'm going to say that before I met you, I just had an idea in my head going around for a story, because Big Karma and Little Cosmo, they're actually, at the time that we wrote this book, they're actually my real dog and cat. And I just thought I would really like to write a story about them. And I'm a prolific writer. I published 7 different books, and I wrote down their story. But then I was just like, okay, I actually have a master's degree in sculpture, and I could do the drawings myself, but we just met each other. And I thought, I'd really love it if Karen did the illustrations for this book. So what is an illustrator? What does an illustrator contribute to turning my written words into a reality?
Yeah, it's very much a co-creative process, right? That's what we've been on together, is a co-creative journey. And for me on my end, when an author approaches me with their story idea, the first thing I want to do is get as far into their imagination as possible. Like I want to know all kinds of things because I write things too. And I know for me, when I'm writing, I'm picturing things in my head, and especially working with someone like you who is a visual artist already, I know you got pictures going on in there, right? So I want to know what those are. And I want to ask questions in a way that also helps the author to articulate it and picture more. And then come in there, right, with my own creativity, what I'm picturing when you tell me the story. And so we have this lovely imaginative creative process going back and forth through the conversation as we're laying out the book. We start seeing it unfold in storyboard form. And that's usually when authors get really excited because it takes that idea and starts to make it concrete. It's like, oh, I can start picturing this now in the real world in my hands. And then, there's just all the process of laying out the book, going through character development, each illustration, what it looks like, the drawings, all of those have spaces and places for what do you think how this is going? Do you want to change something? Do you want to add something? Is there a new idea that's coming up? Oh, now that we're here, I could see this, right? Happening. So it's really fun to be in that process with somebody. And that's why I love to do books with people. It's just great. And with self-publishing authors, because then I really get to be in there with the authors.
Yes, and I actually really love that because when I wrote the story, I of course wrote it on 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and it was just lines on one page, right? But a book isn't lines on one page, and we're going to read, and we'll read more of the story. But as you can see in this layout, as Karen was saying, the lines on one page became actually a layout in a book. The pictures and the words actually go together seamlessly to tell you more about the story and what's really happening than just those lines on a page. As we all know, people say a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? The
So
picture is telling the story just as much.
absolutely. Yeah. So one of the things that you say about this book that I love, and you've even mentioned it already, is you don't call it a children's book, right? You
No,
call it a family book. And
no.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. What's the difference? How do you articulate that?
Well, when I wrote Big Karma and Little Cosmo Help Each Other, and also the sequel, Big Karma and Little Cosmo Welcome New Cat Zenni, I wasn't, even though the story is, you might think it's simple, and as we'll read it in a few minutes, and you might think because it has pictures and it's in this format that it's a story, it's a children's book, right? It's to be read by children and to be understood by children. But the reason I call it a family book is that my reason for writing this is for adults and children to read it together as a family. And the message in the book about that we're all able to help each other because we're different, that message is a message not just for children. This is actually really as much of a message for the adults who are going to read the book to their children, adults who are going to read the book with their children. And, there's all kinds of families and family structures in the world. It's not just a mom and a dad reading with kids, it's grandparents reading together, it's two moms and two dads, and it could be your caregiver that you're living with. And I really wanted people to understand that the message in this book is actually a family message that everybody, adults, teach children how to be kind. They model and teach children how to get along with others, to love and respect people's differences and understand that it's important to be different. That's that's how we can make our contribution to the world. So it's not a book just for children. kindness actually starts with adults, and it starts within the family. So this is why this is a family book, and I'm so passionate about saying, no, 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 it's not a children's book, it's a family book.
Yeah, I think, and oftentimes the young people inspire the adults too, right? Like oftentimes we need those reminders. And so when we read books like this, it's like, oh, like it takes you out of the busyness of life and like reminds you of a simple but very important truth about how we need to treat each other and ourselves. So, well, without further ado, are you going to read us this book?
I'm going to read this book, and we're going to see how good I do, because I'm not formally trained as a teacher, how good I do reading this way. So, Big Karma and Little Cosmo Help Each Other, written by Karen Ross and illustrated by Karen Light. And let me get this going. And I asked Karen to put in this first page this book belongs to, because I wanted all of the family members to be able to write their names down. So, Big Karma is a dog. He's big and he's old. Little Cosmo is a cat. He's little and he's young. Big Karma and Little Cosmo, they are best friends. They're very different, but it doesn't bother them at all. They eat together, they play together, and sleep together every single day. When Big Karma's ball rolls under the couch, Little Cosmo squeezes under to get it. Big Karma can't fit, and his legs hurt if he bends down too much. Big Karma's barking, bark, bark, and Little Cosmo's getting his ball. When Little Cosmo gets sent to the bedroom for jumping in the lamp on the lamp in the pet parents' living room, when Little Cosmo gets sent to time out in the bedroom for jumping on the lamp in the pet parents' living room, Big Karma pushes the bedroom door open with his nose. Little Cosmo doesn't know how to open doors yet, but Big Karma does. And all of these stories, I want to remind people, all of these stories are really true. I didn't make them up. This is what Big Karma and Little Cosmo do. When Big Karma's tummy doesn't feel well, Little Cosmo lies beside Big Karma and licks his face. When Little Cosmo gets stuck in the pet parent's closet, Big Karma barks until Little Cosmo gets rescued. Bark, bark! Some people think that being different makes it hard to get along. But Big Karma and Little Cosmo don't. They know that being different is the gift that we've all been given so that we can help each other. Now, in the back of the book, the last 2 pages here of the book, I asked Karen to add some questions and an activity. And actually what we'd like you to do, so if you're at home now and you're watching this on Zoom or if you're on Facebook, I'd like you to take a moment and you can actually answer the questions in the chat. If you're watching this recorded later on, just take pause the video a minute and take a few moments to answer the question. So Karen, I'm going to ask you actually if you can read the first question.
So the first question is, how are Big Karma and Little Cosmo different? How are they different? So pop that in the chat, whatever answers come up for you guys. Size, yes.
Look how big Karma is.
Uh-huh.
Oh, little Cosmo is. He's a kitten.
They can be different species,
Yeah.
their age, their size. Yeah. Their cat and dog. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Their colors are different. Exactly. So the second question is, how can being different help us to help others? How can being different help us to help others? This is a really good question. What are your thoughts out there? Just stick them in the chat.
Well, people are writing. I'm going to add one, Karen.
Ooh,
Hey, I'm really good at writing, and I can draw, but I can't draw as realistically, Karen, as you can. I can't draw in this style. So my words and your pictures work together to make a whole book, right?
I love that. Yes. Yes. That's why I love what I do, because we bring our different gifts and talents together for that. Instead of looking at things of, oh, I don't have all these skills. It's like, oh, because I don't have all these skills, I get to connect with other people and we get to help each other.
Yeah, as I always say, that's why actually there are 8 billion of us here on Earth, all unique and all different. It's because our uniqueness and the things we're able to do allow us to help other people with the things maybe they aren't as good at, they aren't as confident at, right? So if we were all the same, we wouldn't be able to help each other. We need to be different. We absolutely need to be different, because that is how we can actually make sure all the things that need to get done in this world get done, and that we can be as most help as we can.
Yeah. And the last question to consider right now is, what will you and your family do to help someone today? You know, one of the things that Karen is always sharing through her foundation and all of her creations is that this can be very simple, and this can be something that's incorporated with some intentionality in any day, in any moment, in any exchange. You could be at the grocery store and you could practice kindness. You could be driving your car practicing kindness. You could be at school practicing kindness. What can you and your family do?
Yes, and I'm going to say that I was at the grocery store the other day, and I didn't get a cart. And I thought, oh, I just need 1 or 2 things. So, of course, I started walking in the grocery store, and well, I found more than 1 or 2 things that I needed. And all of a sudden, my arms were full, and something dropped, and a lady stopped. And she said, just stand right there. I'm going to go get a cart for you. Okay. And then I stood there, and she went and she ran to the front of the store and got a cart. And then she helped me put everything in. That was totally amazing. Totally amazing, right? There's so many opportunities for kindness right in front of us. So we just need to open our eyes and open our mind and open our heart.
Yeah. And I think if we ask that question as we go out into our days, like, how can I be kind today? It's one way to help you open your eyes to see the opportunities as you go about just doing what you do, just doing what you do out in the world. And maybe it'll inspire something else, but it's doing what you do. It's how you live your life.
Right. And children can be just as helpful. They can help put away groceries. They can help put things in the cart at the supermarket. They can open a door for someone, right? They can smile at someone. There's so many different ways. It's not something we need to just say, oh, only adults can be kind. Children can be just as well, just as much. Little Cosmo, he's small and young, but he helps out too, right?
Yep, he's got his own unique ways of helping. So Karen, why did you decide to put these questions into the books at the back?
I really decided to put them in, and I just wanted to say there's also an activity. And the activity at the back is to draw a picture of how you can help someone. And Karen and I encourage you and your family to sit down after this and draw a picture of how you can help someone. And the reason that I put the questions, and actually the reason that I wanted people to do a drawing together, is that a lot of times we think about, we read a story or we read a book or we think about something, but we don't turn it into action. And I want families to sit down together and discuss together about what can we do? And especially the last question, what will you and your family do to help someone today? That kindness, when we think about being kind to someone, to helping them pick up a grocery that they dropped because they didn't get their cart, or getting someone's ball out from under the couch, when we think about being kind, it's not the same as actually being kind. Kindness means that we need to take an action. And when we answer questions and write something down, and then when we draw, we have that first start to taking an action. So my goal with Big Karma and Little Kosmo Help Each Other, and also with our second book, is to help people go from just thinking about being kind to actually taking that step to being kind. When Little Cosmo was stuck in the closet, Big Karma did something. He barked, right? He barked. When Big Karma had a tummy ache, Little Cosmo licked his face to make him feel better. Kindness means going from thinking about doing something to taking that first step to action. So I put the questions and the activity so people could take the first step to actions together as a family.
Yeah. I love that because, part of my education background, we talk about what moves somebody from thinking about something to doing something about it, right? And really thinking is a part of that, but also preparing. And that drawing piece can help people prepare. What does this look like? What's my part in this? What might happen? Where am I? That really helps you to picture and prepare, which is more likely just to make moving into action easy and simple and even fun or exciting, depending on what's going on. So I really appreciate you having those places in there for us integrating these important messages into our lives.
Well, thank you. And actually, one of the things, since we're talking about the importance of action and drawing and how creativity actually and kindness and action are really go hand in hand, I wanted to flip the switch a little. And I know you're really supposed to be facilitating and asking me the questions, but I wanted to take some time and ask you some questions too. Is that okay?
Yeah, I love conversing with you in multiple ways, however we want to do this.
Cool. And I think, as Lynn was saying also earlier, I think people don't often get a chance to meet somebody who's a book illustrator, right? That's a really, really unique vocation to have. So how do you actually go from an idea of what the characters should look like till you have this final, drawing? Because the person who's reading the book only actually sees the final drawing, right?
Right.
Always look like this? Did this cover always look like this?
No.
How did you do it?
Yeah, I think that's a really fun question because that's, character development. I really see that as a conversation. And it's sort of what I was saying at the beginning of like, there are pictures going on in people's heads. What are they? What are you picturing? And part of that process for me too is inviting people to send me pictures too. Like you have pets, like send me pictures of your pets. This is before I met them. I now know very well what they look like, but this is before I met them when we first started. So send me pictures. Also send me images from books or online of illustrations that you like. Like, there's so many ways that we can illustrate and there's so many people want to concentrate on different aspects. Like, I know for you, the simplicity was really an important part. Like, just want people to see this in a simple way. I want, for so many good reasons. And so it's like, okay, so that's a different style. And now I know that. So now let's dig into that. And it's fun. We send sketches back and forth. I start with pencil. I get asked for your feedback. We change this. We try this. I put it digitally. How's it looking now? Is a digital image? What colors are we doing? So it's really, once we have the character, it sets the tone, right, for the rest of the book. So that's why that conversation is just so important. And it sets us up for the rest of everything. Those main characters.
I think that one of the important things is that in my mind, okay, I have my, pictures of my real pets. So in my mind, I know what they look like, but I didn't necessarily want them to look exactly the same for the book. And every time, Karen, you sent me a drawing, well, now it's a reality, and I can think about, oh, is this exactly how I want them to look for the book? So I remember for the first drawing that you sent of what the cover would look like, Big Karma, I said, oh, can you turn his head more so that he's looking down,
Yeah.
right, at the pets? And then I realized I wanted them to have even though they're animals and we're not going to really pin a pin on them, I wanted them to have their little kindness pins like we all did. And for me, it was really important that these two books looked like they had a relationship together so that they weren't exactly the same. So in this one, the heart with the red and the green, our foundation colors, are behind Big Karma and Little in front of Big Karma and Little Cosmo. They're surrounding them. And in this one, they're behind. So I wanted that continuity, that they were going to be different because now we have new Cat Zenni, but it was going to look similar enough. And then I remember I said, oh, could you please put little Cosmo put his arm around Zenni, like his little paw, his little arm, like he's welcoming
And
him.
this is why it's so good to have several people in a project like this, right? There's so many things to consider. There's so many possibilities, so many paths to take. And it's like, people will often ask me, don't you just want complete freedom? And I'm like, like, so, it's nice to have somebody else that you're bouncing that off of. And so that you get to direct all that creativity towards actually creating a final product in a special way. So yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. How do illustrations help people read without the words? Because I just think that this is so important, because every time that you would send me the illustrations, and I'm going to, show this example. So again, a similar spread to Big Karma and Little Cosmo help each other, but they really tell the story of playing. Like I can say they're playing,
Mhm.
but the picture really, it's like amazing how it adds to the story.
Yeah. One of my favorite things to do with young kids sometimes is to ask them to tell me the story before I read it, like in an illustrated thing. And it's so fun to see what they say, because of course they bring in little snippets from their own lives, or, their own little experiences, or whatever is going on in that big, beautiful imagination. But you can always see where it's coming from when you look at the image, right? And that's what's so powerful about imagery, is that it can really mean something, different things to different people, even if you think, I wrote this story, this is what it's about. But no, it can mean something else completely, or bigger, or they focus on this piece of it, right? And it allows a reader to really experience it in a way that's meaningful to them, that's particular to them, And like you said, like, words are awesome, but especially when you're kind of writing for children's books and you want to keep that simple language, their emotions are much more complicated than they can express, and their imaginations are bigger than they can express. And so pictures are a way of sort of getting at that, and getting in touch with it and resonating, hopefully, with them. So
Right. And I'm going to say, I think this is a particularly good example of that, right? Because of course, throughout the book, there's an understory of the story is that they love each other, right? Big Karma and Little Cosmo love each other, but this picture really tells the reader they love each other. And again, in the follow-on book, here we have now Big Karma, Little Cosmo, and Zenni. And again, it's the similar picture that really says this is what love is, right? This is what kindness. Well, in the foundation, we always say plant kindness, grow love. So kindness was planted, and what is it growing? It's growing love. That illustration says something in the way the words that I wrote can't say it. And I agree with you. As an artist, I always said I only make 50% of the artwork. It's only 100% when someone looks at it.
Yeah.
And they add their part of that creativity to it, right? And sometimes somebody would come and say, "Oh, I made this art piece," and they'd say, "Oh, this is what it looks like to me and what it's all about to me." And I'd be like, "Oh, I never would have thought of that." But that's them adding their creativity to it.
That's what's so fun, right? Like I love doing that. People, I make all kinds of artwork, paintings, etc. And people are like, what does this mean? I'm like, what does it mean to you? Like, what do you see? What's going on, when you look at it? And that's so intriguing for me to know as an artist. I don't need people to attach the same meaning or get what I was trying to say. Like that, I think that's sometimes a misconception about artists is that like, I need you to think of it in this way. No, how's it speaking to you? How does it make you feel? What does it remind you of? And when I look at that image, I just see like cozy warmth, like, just being with the ones you love in a very safe, loving space. And don't we all?
Don't we all want that? That's why these are family books, right? This is what your
Yeah.
family should be like.
Yes.
So it's so interesting because I think the illustrations combine creativity and kindness. How do you think that creativity and kindness go together in illustrations and outside of the world of illustrating as well?
Oh, creativity and kindness. Oh man. It's a big concept, but I think that if we look at something like one of these books, it's like we were talking about with all the emotions, right? Like we have big emotions, we have complicated emotions, we have conflicting emotions. And as an illustrator, I'm always curious to bring my creativity to that space. Like, how do I actually illustrate that somebody's excited about something, but really nervous? Like there's something that they're curious about, but they're hesitant or too shy to ask. Like, how do we show that in imagery so the people who are reading it are like, oh, me too, I get that. Yes, I resonate. Oh, you see me, right? Like sometimes that's what stories and art can do is make a person feel seen when they read it or see it. And that is such a beautiful creative challenge that I love to undertake in my work. And undertaking it in that way, I think is a kindness, because we're really trying to understand why people do the things that they do. We could just be like, I don't know why people do what they do in this world. But then when we tell a story in a way that we connect with a deeper understanding, feeling it in our hearts, not just hearing the story up here, but like feeling it here, that's what shows us, okay, this is maybe what's going on with somebody else, or, oh, I was judging them, but they have the same emotions. We might have different situations, but we have the same emotions that are going on, and I think children are super open to that concept. They just might not be able to articulate it, but they're very open and they love it when you're talking about it. And images give us a way to talk about it, and the stories give us a way to talk about it with each other in these family books.
I agree. And, people often ask me the question, how do you think creativity and kindness go together? And so often, just as you were saying, we're in a situation, whether it's a child, whether it's an adult, that we're with someone, we don't agree with their point of view, we're upset or angry with the things that they've done, and we don't know how to be kind, right? We're just upset, and our instinct is to think unkindly, speak unkindly, and act unkindly. Actually, it's our creativity that allows us to think of a different response, to
Yes.
act in a different way, right? To overcome that negative emotion that we're feeling, to think about, oh, what's, again, as you were saying, what's this other person feeling? And oftentimes it takes a lot of creativity to be kind. And good thing is that people come with both a lot of creativity and a lot of ability to be kind. Good thing, right?
How you frame how you approach the situation. Like, do I believe it's possible that we can all feel good about this? And if you believe it's possible, your creativity gets to work. Like it will, it just will. You invite it with a question like that. You invite it with a belief of that it's possible.
Absolutely. So I have a question for you, Karen, and I'm going to be totally transparent and say, as Karen and I were discussing, preparing for this, Karen brought up a really great question that she wanted me to ask her. And I think that this is a super question. So why is kindness so important in creative collaboration? So when you with someone with me, like me, why is kindness so important?
And I'd love to hear your response to this too. The first thing that really comes up for me is what collaboration entails, right? Like it entails listening and sharing, sometimes disagreeing, problem solving, like we were just talking about. And it's just an opportunity to practice kindness at every turn, really. Like, how do I fully listen to you? It's a practice of kindness, like fully listen to you without being too attached to the way I want to do something, or how do I fully share, even keeping your feelings in mind, even if I'm disagreeing, like how do I do that with kindness? How do we look at a problem and say we could both get really excited in some way if we could land on, a good answer? And then I also think it takes a lot of kindness with yourself, like if there is a disagreement or somebody isn't happy with, and this is something that happens all the time in illustration. Everything I put out there, people don't love. Like, like that is a risky, vulnerable place to be in a lot. And how do you treat yourself when that happens? Do you, I suck as an illustrator. My work is bad. Or are you like, okay, that wasn't for them. I still think I like it, but that's not for them. How do we do something that's for them? That is a practice of kindness on yourself too. So those are the first things that come up. And I'm really curious what your take is on this.
Well, I think many of the same things. And so, of course, I wrote this story, and having an art background myself and some, ideas about how something might look, I also have to practice kindness in knowing that when Karen sends me back the picture, why do we as people think someone's going to do something perfectly the first time, right? And so in Karen sending me back, the picture, and I was thinking, oh, but that's not what I thought in my mind it would look like. And when somehow, as people, we're so focused on ourselves that when we think, oh, that's not what I thought it would look like, that the tendency might be to say, be unkind. But of course, now it's a great practice for me to say, oh, well, maybe I wasn't actually really clear when I drew this, or actually, let me look at what Karen drew, her perspective, because maybe it's actually better than I had thought of in my mind. And so that back and forth, right, and that practice of, okay, thinking about Karen's put in all this time and effort, right? And I know that her intention is to make the drawing what I want it to look like. That what I would suggest to people is to work on a creative collaboration with someone, because that's a great way to practice kindness, right? To open your mind, to open your heart, to say, my perspective, my view, what I think this should look like, maybe actually isn't the only way, and it's better together if we can put our views together. So this illustration is something, it's the work of the two of us, Karen, and it's the, I don't like the word product, it's the result of our creative collaboration, and it's more than I think either of the two of us could ever make. And I think, of course, that it has the heart, because it was made with love, and it's made a fabulous friendship between you and I. That's the thing, a fabulous friendship as well. So that's my answer to the question. And so just before we switch back and chat more a little bit about Big Karma and Little Kosmo, welcome new Cat Zenni. I just wanted to know, Karen, why do you choose to illustrate these kind of family books, these type of stories?
Mhm. Yeah, it's really important to me, the stories that I choose to illustrate. Stories have such a potential to make an impact, and young people are really impressionable. So, I really want to um, put things out into the world that inspire us to be the best that we can be, inspire us to be kind and loving and empowered and inclusive and just understand each other. And I think stories are something, right? Like I could tell you, give you some advice. I could say, Karen, I think you should be nice to that person, and you're like, okay, like somebody's first reaction to advice isn't always great. Like, who are you to tell me? You don't even understand what just happened, right? But with a story, there's, oh, I understand something on a deeper level. Oh, that resonated. I felt that way too. There's a connection that's born, and people can just be inspired because they feel understood and seen. And that's part of it, like it's partly to inspire people to act in ways that I think our world needs. And then also, to have the people in the world who don't feel seen and heard or understood feel those things. So that also changes their trajectory sometimes. So I think there's huge potential. The stories that we tell when we're having story time with our loved ones, that's so important. There's so many beautiful opportunities for connection and understanding. And that's really the heart of why I want to do this and continue doing this. So yeah, and I just love opportunities like these stories when they come along. I'm like, yes, applying what I love to do with things I care about, what else is better?
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
I'm going to hand this back to you, and we're just going to talk for a couple of minutes about what I call our follow-on book, Big Karma and Little Cosmo. Welcome, new Cat Zenni.
Yes, and it's so much fun to do another book with you and see the story continue with Karma and Cosmo. So, I'm curious about why you decided to write this book. Can you let us in on that? What was going on that you're like, you know what? I need to do another.
Sure. Our family had an opportunity to practice kindness a couple of years ago when our fabulous vet, who's a wonderful part of our community, our vet clinic is around the corner. He and his wife called us and let us know that their daughter had an asthma attack, and the doctor had said they couldn't have pets at home anymore. So he had to go through the heart-wrenching process of rehoming his cat Zenni. And he called and he asked us if Zenni could come and live with Big Karma and Little Cosmo. And so, of course, we said yes. And we were super excited to welcome new Cat Zenni into our family. And it was so interesting. And around the same time, I've been thinking a lot about, because there was the war in Ukraine, and I'd been thinking a lot about the Ukrainian people who had fled and gone to different countries like Poland or a variety of different places. And I really thought, well, it was very traumatic for Zenni to have to leave the only family he'd ever known. And it was very traumatic. Big Karma and Little Cosmo had both also come to us as rescue pets for a variety of different reasons. And so I decided, why don't I write another book about what the experience is of being a newcomer and how kindness is what helps us to welcome newcomers. And also, I didn't want new Cat Zenni to be upset that Big Karma and Little Cosmo had a book about them and he didn't have a book. So that's really the story of how this follow-on book came to be.
Yeah, and you even included a letter in the back, right, to the reader. So you really also made a decision to speak to them very directly. And I was curious what brought on that decision.
Yes, and I really wanted people to know, and this book is for, you know, a little bit older in age group. It's got a little bit longer and more involved story. And I really wanted not only the reader to put in their own thoughts, but I really wanted them to know more directly my thoughts about the importance, really, all of us, every single one of us in our lives will at some point be a newcomer, whether it's we move to a new town, we go to a new school, or to welcome a newcomer. We moved many, oh look, my Mac made a thumbs up. We 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 will all have that experience. And actually it's kindness that gets us through that experience. It's kindness that gets us through that experience. Right?
Yeah.
It's human, it happened, it happened to Zenni, but it could happen to any of us. Oh, and I think we have the surprise, Karen.
I see a door opening.
Yes,
Surprise.
and this is my husband, Brian, and we are going to introduce to you, because Big Karma and little Cosmo and Zenni are real pets. So I'm going to hold up my computer and hopefully turn the right way. And now, now you can see,
That's not for you.
here's little Cosmo and Zenni and Big Karma. And Big Karma actually was very ill this year, and we didn't think he was going to make it. And you can see he's wearing a brace on his leg because his leg stopped working. And of course, our fabulous vet who shared Zenni with us saved Big Karma's life. And that's the wonderful thing about kindness.
Yeah.
Kindness makes a better world, and it's life-saving. So thank you, Big Karma, little Cosmo, and Zenni, and husband Brian for bringing them. And now we're going to ask. Okay.
Now we're gonna
Bringing them into the studio might be easier than yeah. Cosmo says there's a variety of electrical cords that are very tasty over here.
Oh yeah, there's lots of fun things to play with in a studio. Karen, I know you talked about wanting to illustrate because you noticed your pets, you made the pets the main characters, but I'm also curious if you have any thoughts about how animals can be a great way to talk about kindness, like why you really see, okay, I'm going to make a book about animals to demonstrate this message.
The thing is, Big Karma and little Cosmo and Zenni, they don't overthink things, right? They don't overthink things. They just act in unbelievably kind ways. And we, as human beings, sometimes it's hard for us to look at stories or look at other, what people are doing. And we say, I'm not like them. I'm not, I can't do that. But actually, we all have a universal connection to animals. I don't know anybody who doesn't like to watch one of those funny cat videos or a dog. We have that connection to animals. So in telling the story through animals, I think it's a lot easier for us humans to get the message. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I always, think my cats are my teachers in so many ways. Like, we introduced two cats to each other like a year ago, and it was a process, but it's also like, wow, just look at how they wander around in the world and how they take care of themselves and how they play. And like, there's so many wonderful, and we just love them. We just love them, right? Like, yeah. So this is such a fun project to be a part of. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoy that we continue to have conversations and do different things with it together. And not that long ago, we were at 5 different Lush locations, reading your book to people. Is there anything else you'd like to say about this project as we wrap up, or anything else you want to share?
Well, I really just want to say that I couldn't have done it without you. I
Oh,
really just couldn't have done it without you. And I think when we think about how we do things in the world, so often we think about, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to make a difference? What's my contribution going to be? What I'd like people to think about is that what makes a better, kinder world is when we work together to contribute together. Each person, as I said earlier, is different for a reason. There are 8 billion of us here on Earth, different for a reason. And the reason we're different is so we can help each other. So thank you for all the help you've given me, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you for all the help you gave me too, and being a part of this project. And I I love that message. I don't think we can hear it enough, that if we don't have a certain skill or a talent, it's not from some deficit within us. It's a place and an opportunity for connection with others, and bring what you got to the table, invite other people to bring what they got. And that's when you make something bigger than either of you could have imagined, which is how I feel when we've done these projects together. We did have a question from Facebook that I thought you might want to answer. Let me just scroll on over there for a second. Shoot, it's not scrolling for me. Oh, there. Do you see it from Facebook? Was Karma okay with having cat siblings, or did you have to have a warm-up time before they were ever together in the same room?
Okay, well, there's actually a really interesting story about that. So we had a previous cat named Misty when Karma came to the family. So Karma is about 13 and a half years old now. And so he came to us. We rescued him from a dog rescue when he was about 9 months old. And when he came and he saw Misty, our previous cat, he fell in love at first sight. It was love at first sight. On Misty's side, it was not love at first sight. And so every day, Big Karma would come and he would bring her a toy and drop the ball for her. And she would just be like, okay. And she put up with him. But he absolutely loves cats. And the reason that after she passed away, I decided to get little Kosmo was that I took Big Karma to the vet and he saw a cat in a carrier that looked like Misty, and he ran right over and he was wagging, and I thought, oh, he's lonely. He misses her. He thought it was Misty. And so one day I saw little Cosmo was abandoned by his mother in one of our neighbors' sheds. And when they said they had a singleton kitten who needed a home, and we fed him with a little dropper, I thought, oh, that will be great. And Karma took care of Cosmo like it was his little brother from the moment little Cosmo was 3 weeks old when we got him. And so they became absolutely best friends. When Zenni came, here was an interesting thing. Little Cosmo had never seen another cat and thought he was a dog, as you will read in the story. Little Cosmo never meowed till he met Zenni. So it was some introduction to Zenni, because Zenni never met a dog, as you will read in the story. But actually, many things we have in our mind are myths, that dogs and cats can't get along and don't like each other. So we could let go of those limitations to our thinking and those boundaries, and know that kindness, there's no boundaries to kindness. There's no boundaries between species, etc. We can all be kind and we can all love each other.
And I think a part of that introduction process with cats, from my experience too, is there's a lot of kindness and letting things be slow, letting cats take their time in transition, right? Transition is a tricky place, and always such a good time to practice kindness in any way we can to ourselves and others. And I know these books are also a part of your foundation. Do you want to talk about that for a moment before we? Oh,
Sure.
It looks like another question too, but I'll ask you that after.
Sure. And actually, I was going to say that, so these are books that have been sponsored and published by Love and Kindness Project Foundation. And Love and Kindness Project Foundation fosters just kindness in the world by helping people use their creativity to speak, think, and act kindly every day. And you can go on our website and you can order these little kindness buttons. Everything is for free. We ship them everywhere in the world. We have a variety of types. This is our latest one, Kindness Reigns Supreme. We're doing a 50 States of Kindness project. We have a Pride Kindness buttons, and almost everything we do is for free because kindness is free. And the only things that we do charge for are our books, and we have another one about all different free things for kindness you can do, but every time you purchase one of these books, all of the royalties, the proceeds goes directly to the foundation. So that's one of the ways we fund our foundations. And I actually have published 7 different books. Some of them are business books too, like this one, The Kind Leader. Any books that you purchase that I have written or co-authored, all of those royalties go to fund the foundation so we can continue. We give micro grants for creative projects that people want to do, and also sending out our kindness buttons and a variety of different things. So that's a little bit about us, because every single person, your small act of kindness makes a huge positive difference and creates a better, kinder world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I first met you, you gave me my pin, and I was just like, "Oh, it's such a precious little gift." And then I got some, and I've had fun. It's so fun to give them out too, because people kind of aren't used to being given a little something. It brings a little delight or surprise, but in a good way. Recently, I was in a checkout line, and I don't know how I got onto this topic with the cashier, but he was down and out about his dating life. And I was just like, well, you're going to find somebody who loves you. And I gave him one of these pins, and he was just like, well, thank you. Like, like he was so down, and it just, so the pins, if you like this idea at all, I really encourage you to get some for yourself and experience the joy of giving them out, and how people receive them. It's definitely a kindness. I love that project. Yeah. And people are wondering, will there be another book in the series? That's a question that
Yeah,
just,
I'm actually, Karen, you and I will have to chat after. I have been thinking about it, and actually Big Karma and Little Cosmo help each other come in a variety of languages. If you look on Amazon.com, you'll see they're translated into many languages, and actually Karen and I are just finishing up a translation in Hebrew.
yeah, that's been an adventure.
Yeah, that has been an adventure because neither of us can speak the language. So we're learning
Right.
about creativity and kindness.
Changing your mind to think differently and and the book goes backwards, and yeah. Yes, it's so great to get them out in all kinds of ways. So happy to be a part of it with you. All right,
So,
go ahead.
oh, I was going to say we should probably turn it back kindly to Felipe too.
Yes.
Thank you so much. What a fun conversation. I really, really love this, and the simplicity and beauty that comes from understanding that our acts of kindness and compassion can have rippling effects all around us. So that was really, really beautiful. Thanks again for such a wonderful and rich conversation. So I'm going to share my screen really quickly to tell our viewers what is happening next. So with the Charter for Compassion, Wednesdays, all the Wednesdays until the end of March, we have Marilyn Turkovich, our executive director, with her webinar series, The Magical Ability of Music to Inspire Action. You meet with a bunch of friends in that space on Zoom for an hour. Marilyn shares different kinds of music and music videos that inspire some sort of action. This past week was about being active in advocacy and protesting and making your voice heard. So each day, each Wednesday has a different theme. So we invite you all to join us next Wednesday, March 6th at 8 a.m. Pacific time. And then you can stay, or well, you switch from one webinar to the other, right? With a different link. But we have our next global read. It's on Wednesday, March 6th as well, but it's at 9 a.m. So an hour of Maryland, an hour of Patrick McKeown, who is the author of The Breeding Cure. This conversation is going to be facilitated by Shane O'Connor. Do not miss that. And last but not least, we have our second global read in March on the Friday, March 8th. And it's I Shall Not Hay with Dr. Iseldine Abuela Ish and the facilitator March Andre, both from the Toronto area in Canada. Incredible book of a Palestinian doctor that crosses the border multiple times, and he grew up in a refugee camp in Palestine, and is a Harvard trained doctor. So it's a really incredible story for everyone to join us. And last but not least, we have the Charter Sangha, our space for meditation, for quiet, for connecting, every last Saturday of the month. So this time is going to be Saturday, March 30th at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And you can register on our website with all that information. I am posting currently now all the links on the chat. So if anybody wants to register, you're welcome to. Again, thank you so much, Karen and Karen, for giving us the opportunity to listen from you, hear the process of the book, and oh my God, and meet the protagonist of this whole thing. I was floored when I saw the three babies there. So that was great. Again, thank you so much for everything, and we will be talking to you soon in our next Global Read this Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was a blast.
Thank you.